Good evening and welcome to the Job Search Solution, the radio program where we talk about looking for a job, changing jobs, changing careers, hiring. And as always, we begin with a prayer. Dear God, grant us thy peace and thy mercy, thy will be done. And in just a few minutes, Rich Chavinsky is going to be with us talking about consultants in the workplace and some of the issues that are facing them in today's employment market. Is a real interesting topic this evening, and you won't want to miss it. We've started over the last month or so, started having a moment of gratitude in the beginning of every program. So take 5-10 seconds to be grateful. Go. It's really hard to be unhappy when you're grateful. We have so much to be grateful for. No matter what our situation is, there are things we can be grateful for, and we have to be grateful. Nothing beats being grateful. I wanted to speak this evening about something that came up with a candidate yesterday that probably that happens a lot, at least 2 or 3 times a month. Probably happens more than that, a lot. And that's when a candidate goes through a number of interviews and doesn't get hired. I had a candidate that has been going off and on through an interviewing process with a company for a little better than a month now. It's almost been 6 weeks. And twice the candidate was told by one of the hiring authorities that he was the person for the job. He was going to get hired. And it was just a matter of time before he got the offer. They even picked out a start date and all of that, and discussed money, discussed everything that he was going to get. And this went on and on. And I kept explaining to him that until you get an offer, heck, until you've been at the company for 5 or 6 months, really don't count on anything, because anything can happen. Well, sure enough, about anything did happen. They didn't hire him. In fact, they decided not to hire anybody. This happened maybe middle of last week, Wednesday, Thursday. And he did exactly what a candidate is not to do. And my dad used to say, a wise man learns by mistakes. A wiser person learns by others' mistakes. This is what not to do. This guy was so furious. He was so mad that he called up the hiring authority, never got him on the phone, left, from what I understand, a horrible phone message. He called up the hiring manager's boss, left him a horrible phone message. Called up the hiring manager's boss's boss, left a horrible phone message. Wrote a horrible email to the guy's boss, the guy's boss's boss, the executive vice president, and the CEO. A horrible letter. Wrote a horrible letter on LinkedIn about the company. Wrote a horrible review about the company on as many websites as he could find. Just a terrible, ripping the company apart about how they storied him, and how terrible they were, and how awful they were in the interviewing and hiring process, and how they strung him along, and how they told him they were going to hire him, and how awful they were. Don't do that. That's terrible. What goes around comes around. Companies decide to hire and decide not to hire for all kinds of crazy reasons. People in companies decide to hire for all kinds of crazy reasons, not to hire for all kinds of crazy reasons. Whatever you do, don't get mad and angry, and don't do stuff like that. He wrote a Google review. He wrote all kinds of terrible, it was awful. First of all, he burned every bridge you can find in the company. It's not uncommon to go back to candidates that you interviewed before to hire once again, even years after you have considered them once. But doing that kind of thing is just not smart. Besides, it blows back on you. It's just no good. Like Zig Ziglar used to say, if you're old enough to remember Zig Ziglar, if you throw dirt, you get it on your hands. And there's no reason to do that. What goes around comes around, and it happens to everybody. Whatever the reasons were, they were reasons enough for that company not to consider hiring him. And he ran that risk when he entered the job market with them and entered the process with them. And just because they told him that they were going to hire him doesn't mean that they were going to. It happens all the time. Yes, there's a reason to get frustrated and upset and not happy, but there's no reason to do that kind of thing. Please don't. All right, this is Tony Bashir with the Job Search Solution. Stay tuned.